Hello, citizens of the Milky Way. This is Dylan Hackworth. Today we got a little something special for you, a bonus, if you will. Maureen and I, we were guests on another podcast, the Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate Podcast. Very dear friends of ours. We were on vacation with them down in Kentucky. We were along the Bourbon Trail, and we decided to record a podcast for their show. In case you don't know, Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate, they do a weekly breakdown of 80s and 90s action flicks. It's just so much fun, and we wanted to do a crossover with them, so we wanted to find the right movie that kind of hit that action button, but also kind of scratch that Creep Street itch. So we decided on the 1994 classic, The Crow. Now, fans of The Crow will know there's a lot of tragedy and everything behind the making of this film. We do a little breakdown of the paranormal significance of what The Crow symbolizes in mythology. We also do just a breakdown of the movie, but just so everyone knows, tomorrow you'll get our regularly scheduled episode. Tomorrow is the true story of the Devil Made Me Do It case. The real story behind The Conjuring Part 3. You're not going to want to miss it. Of course, if you know where to find our social media stuff, if you want to follow Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate, you can find them on Facebook and Instagram at BB Karate Podcast. Same thing with Twitter at BB Karate Podcast. And of course, email them at bbkaratepodcast@gmail.com. Now, sit back, pour yourself a stiff drink, and enjoy the 1994 classic, The Crow, with Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate.
And welcome everyone to Bullets,
Bourbon,
and Karate. And this week's episode is very special because we have guests for the first time, and those guests are
Creep Street Podcast.
My God, and they're helping us cover the movie The Crow. Welcome, Creep Street Podcast.
Hey, we're happy to be here, guys.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Now, we hope that people who are listening to this might know who we are, but let's just introduce everyone. I'm Adam Archer.
I'm Mark Hall.
I'm Dylan Hackworth.
And I'm Maureen Bogey.
And we're friends.
Yeah. That's right.
Good friends. We'll go as far as to say good friends. And Dylan, Marcus, and myself, Adam, have known each other since about 2011 when we were doing improvised action movies together.
That's right.
And Dylan and Maureen, as if you're a Creep Street fan know, well, they're married.
We're married to each other.
Yes, that should be noted. Not to me or Marcus.
Right.
But to each other.
That's right.
Right, exactly.
And just for maybe the uninitiated, talk a little bit about your podcast. What is it you guys talk about?
Well, we're two comedians from Chicago, but we love talking about bad things. And we don't put a limit on what that is. I mean, we talk about hauntings, we talk about UFOs, cults, killers. We love it all. As comedians, we like things that aren't funny in the least. We just have always enjoyed these sort of macabre subjects. And it was kind of like how it was a large part of what brought us together as a couple and everything. And
yeah, I remember the first time, like you guys mentioning it to Adam and I, that you guys were starting a podcast. It was specifically going to be on cults exclusively.
That's right.
Exactly.
And then you, when it formed, you branched out into this world of macabre and wonder and spirits and cults as well, but everything like that.
Yeah. I've got a fun fact for both Creep Street and BBK fans.
Line it up. Let's do it.
Before this, I had pestered Adam. I had a bunch of different ideas for podcasts. And I had
shot
this
you
idea
down
about
on every one.
wrestling conspiracy theories. And the music that is our outro music on Creep Street, that was actually a theme that Gage Hurley wrote for our potential wrestling podcast.
That's right. I remember this.
Now you guys need to actually make the podcast.
Yeah.
We just need to start our podcast empire.
That's right.
I think so.
And we have Gage Hurley also, I love it, our Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate theme.
Amazing
Oh my
work.
God, it's so good.
So good.
He's great. So, little plug for Gage there. If you have any theme music needs,
Yeah.
hit him up.
And he makes our theme music as well. He
Yeah.
made Creep Street's, friggin' whole damn thing.
Yeah.
the whole damn thing.
That's right. That's the technical musical term. I don't know if you guys know about that. I don't want to brag, but I
No,
know
please.
a
You
lot.
are a graduate of the Juilliard Music School.
Yeah,
And your
just music,
degree
just-
says the whole damn thing.
Yeah. I guess like before we get started and plug, just where they can find us, which we do every week, and we don't really do anything on social media. Why don't you guys go ahead and tell people where they can find you at?
Yeah, because you guys have a fun social media.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you so much. A lot of it is of our dog Banshee. She's very sweet. She's with us at this moment as we're recording. But yes, you can find us on Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod, and then we're also on Facebook. So yeah, those are the main ways to get in touch with us, but also feel free to just email us directly at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com. So yeah, that's kind of our contact
That's right.
info.
Badass contact info.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
thank
they
you so
also, I don't think I heard her say it, but I think you can also find them on Facebook. It's Citizens of the Milky Way. It's a little group that they have where they'll let you in, just go on Facebook, search Citizens of the Milky Way.
Oh, yeah.
They got a
Yes.
lot of discussions on
Thank
there. They
you,
post a
Marcus.
lot of fun stuff, a lot of good contact. There's a lot of fun discussions on there as well.
Also, great place to sell your Ray-Bans.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys you guys are our business agents,
You
I
are.
think.
Yeah.
And
We're going to
thank
end
you so
up
much.
doing more for Creep Street in this than we will for...
Oh, yeah. We're getting that rub, baby. We're getting that
No,
rub.
just us attaching our name to you is all we need.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, and
We're going straight
vice
to the
versa.
top.
Yeah.
And we are Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate. You can find us, our preferred way of contact is bbkaratepodcast@gmail.com, but we're on social media too. BB Karate Podcast is our Twitter, it is our Instagram, and what's our Facebook, Marcus?
Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate.
Oh, baby. And you know what? You can find Creep Street on iTunes Podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on iTunes Podcast and wherever you get your podcasts. And I bet we would both appreciate a 5-star rating or a review.
Big time. It gives you a little bump. It gives you a little spring in your step.
It
you know?
does.
It's that little bit of coffee, that little bit of white powder in the morning that you need just to get you going
right.
through the day.
El Blanco Diablo.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
right.
okay, Espanol.
That's right. And a fun fact about us right now, as we said, we're Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate, and how fun that we are recording this podcast on the Bourbon Trail.
That's right. Yeah.
KY, baby, not the jelly, the state.
Yeah, we're staying in a lovely farm from Airbnb, and we hit up the Bourbon Trail, and we got some fun drinks, some beautiful scenery, and we're recording this great podcast together.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's been a great weekend.
What an amazing way to just kick off summer. It's been such a blast.
It has, and now we got to go back to the Crow setting of Chicago.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
It does feel that way sometimes.
It absolutely does.
You know, Creep Street, our name is Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate, and I believe you all are armed to the teeth with our drink this week.
Amen.
Correct.
We are.
Correct,
Our drink
baby.
this week is, well, I don't know what it's called, but it's a shot in a beer.
yeah, it's a Boilermaker.
It's a Boilermaker.
Boilermaker, but there's some intentions from the film that we're pulling from for this drink. In the film, you can see Coors Light
In
being
Ernie
consumed.
Hudson's fridge.
Yeah, and Ernie Hudson walking around in his cotton boxers and his police hat until the Crow lets him know that he's wearing his police hat inside.
That's
But we got some Coors Lights. We're gonna chase that not with a bullet like they do in the movie,
Right.
but we're gonna chase it with a bullet shot.
A shot of bullet bourbon fresh from
Yeah.
the Bourbon Trail, squeezed from the teat of Kentucky.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow. So you know it's good, baby.
Woo, we're excited. I think everyone here has had a Coors Light by the age of 7, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
I think in Georgia
Yeah.
it's given at like baby showers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, you can drink this while pregnant. It's fine.
Absolutely. They recommend it, honestly. Most doctors
It's
recommend
that, Coors Light uses that as their in their promo material.
it. Yeah.
Craving that sweet alcohol while 8 months pregnant? We got you.
Yeah, it's the trimester of beers.
Yeah.
It's the,
Oh, the Colorado Rockies, baby.
Pregnancy got you down?
Well, we're here to get you up. So that's what we're drinking. With that in mind, of course, that's in relation to the weird scene that we may hit on where they're all swallowing bullets to show their alphaness.
Yeah.
Kind of like our early days of doing comedy. Do you guys remember after a show, we would just go and just kind of like just do shots and just swallow live rounds?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's normal to us.
Yeah.
It got out of
Right.
hand when we got the shotgun shells.
right.
I'm so excited to get get to that part. I don't know if we want to talk about it now or if we want to wait later, but like I have a lot to say about that scene, so I'm excited.
Well, we can't wait to hear it. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this movie. And, you know, a big part of our podcast, guys, is about nostalgia. Now, this movie came out in 94, and I certainly didn't see it then. I would have been 11. But do you guys have any early memories with The Crow?
The first time I saw The Crow, I think, was actually recently, like in 2016.
Ooh, wow.
But I remembered it vividly being little and like seeing the box art and being very afraid of it. I just remember that, like seeing those eyes, the eye, you know, with the white face paint and everything, and being little in the video store, seeing it on the rack and like being like scared of it.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot on this podcast about the, I personally would avoid the horror section just because the box art would give me just nightmares.
Oh, absolutely. Me too. I just couldn't handle it.
But on the same token, the beauty of a lot of these straight-to-video action movies was the box art. And man,
Yes.
Absolutely.
you know, you got Van Damme just shirtless doing a kick. I'm renting that movie 7 times.
Oh,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, Steven Seagal just with a shadow of a face, you know, and
And a tight ponytail.
Yeah, and a tight ponytail. Just something with the word warrant underneath it. Like, I'm watching. If there's Schwarzenegger, you know, just show me a bicep and a face, I'm in on it. You know, that's all I
Absolutely.
need. And The
You just know
Crow
it's gonna
sets
be
that up
good.
perfectly with
Beautiful
the
art cover.
with the poster. It's and the VHS cover, DVD, everything that it had for it was just an ominous kind of, you don't know what's going on here, but you know shit's going down in Detroit.
It's like a more hardcore Tim Burton.
Yeah.
It truly is. And I remember the first thing, in my opinion, the first thing that really grabs your eye is the way the architecture is depicted. You know, I'm not for sure, but I would say they made like a lot of use of models.
They did?
Yeah.
And what's cool is, while that was a somewhat like, I mean, people still use models, but like in this film, it doesn't look real, but that's in a good way. It
Right,
gives
it, like,
it this
works, yeah.
surreal it looks like old like German existentialism. It looks like the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
You know, we should make note real quick, Dylan, before you continue. This is the first discussion of German existentialism on this podcast.
I was about to say, we have never come close to anything of those
Wait,
two
that's
words.
so weird. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Maureen, how about you? Any early encounters with The Crow or stories that are attached with it?
You know, I gotta be honest with you. I don't have a ton of like nostalgia like memories attached with it. I've mentioned this a few times before on Creep Street, but like me growing up, I was like so not into anything scary. It just was like too much for me. It wasn't until probably when I got a little older, probably like college age, that I heard about it, because I was just like, you know, you hear about urban legends and stuff. Not that this wasn't an urban legend. I mean, this occurred. It just, you know, about like spooky stories and, you know, shit like that. So I heard the story about what happens, which we'll get into. So I've known about it for a while, and it's been on my list to watch. But then we, as a crew, as a squad, as it were, we all watched it together last night, and I loved it. It was great. But yeah, I don't really have any childhood connects to it.
Well, we watched it on my deluxe edition, Miramax Collector's Edition, Criterion release, and I don't, you know, this movie, when it came out, I was of age to hear about all the controversy around the death of Brandon Lee on the movie set.
Right,
oh, yes.
right.
Okay, I didn't say it before. I didn't know if it was a secret. Okay.
Yes. Brandon Lee dies during the filming of this movie by an on-set accident with a misloaded gun, which we'll talk about. So I had heard about this. So I had been wanting to see the movie for a long time, but I'm not sure. I think the first time I saw it, I was 13, would have been about when I saw it at a friend's house. We also talk about on this podcast a lot is how so many of these movies we saw at a friend's house.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Rarely
yes.
are we the friend whose house it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We were so ashamed of our families and what we had going. I'm talking about where I've been kicked out of my friend's house because I ate too much and I couldn't watch movies over there anymore. His mom would get mad at me and just talk about me behind my back. And then Dylan's watching, or Adam's watching it with his friends, excuse me.
Yeah, there's one time Marcus was over at a friend's house and the parent didn't know that Marcus could hear him, but the parent was like, we can't have Marcus over anymore because he eats all our damn food.
Oh my God.
My God.
But my most attached memory to this was buying the DVD. It's one of the first DVDs I bought.
Yeah.
I was a fan of The Crow. I was a big fan of Bruce Lee, martial arts movies in general, and I was a big fan of Brandon Lee.
Right.
Showdown in Little Tokyo, Rapid Fire were two of my favorite movies growing up, and they were a lot I don't know how I ended up watching those instead of The Crow.
Right.
I'm sure there was something, like Maureen says, like the box art maybe scared me a little bit.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
getting into a world you're comfortable with, like Brandon Lee in a suit, knocking it off on the streets of Little
Yep.
Tokyo in daylight, or with rapid fire shirtless and just getting after baddies with some martial arts. But
Hell
when
yeah.
it gets ominous, that gets scary.
It's a
Yeah,
different kind of
for
action
sure.
movie, which I thought why it was the perfect pairing for us. And Marcus, how about you? You're a little older than me. Maybe you were of age when this one was coming out.
I was.
Yeah, Marcus, could you fuck?
Were
you fucking
My
at this-
dick was working. My dick was working good. Prime time. All I needed was a bag of Gushers and a Sunny D, and I was ready to go. And that's it. But on this one, I think I got a good story here.
Here we go, baby.
Oh, I'm
let's
so
hear it.
excited.
Marcus has
Let's
the
hear it.
best stories.
So, if you remember, which you probably don't, you remember the movie, but during this time or this year, another little fun movie came out called The River Wild.
Oh, yeah.
In '94, and with Kevin Bacon as this madman going down the Colorado River with his escape buddies, and they take a family hostage. I forgot who the lady was.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was about to segue into that because Meryl Streep died on the set of The River Wild. And
Oh, wow. Fuck, that sucks.
yeah, it's bad. No, so The River Wild came out during this time. Now, so I'm going to go ahead and preface. I did see The Crow in theaters. So I did see it in theaters. And I went with my buddy. I think it was Kenneth at that time, one of my friends, and we went and saw it. We loved it. But it got later into the year, and it was still showing at our Dollar Theater when The River Wild came out.
Wow.
And I think I just looked it up. River Wild came out around September. So this had to have been September in the fall sometime. We went and saw The River Wild, and then we decided to go next door to the Dollar Theater and go see The Crow again.
Good choice.
This time, we're with a couple of ladies.
Here we
Oh,
go.
okay.
And so,
Get those gushers ready.
yeah.
Oh, come on.
And so we watch The River Wild, and I think to myself, like, when going into this date, this is a girl I've been on, like, maybe 1 or 2 dates with. She was from another junior high, and she had a brother who I was scared of. His name was Jebo.
Jebo.
And
It's not even a real goddamn name.
Yeah. And this guy played high school football. We looked up to the guys and stuff like that, and I was just scared shitless of this dude. So we end up getting done with the movie, with The River Wild. There's some hand holding, little necking, little popcorn, little
Hell
touching
yeah.
hands,
Oh,
stuff like
yeah.
that. We go into The Crow. This is where I decide I am going to try to use some fingers.
Oh, Marcus.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if
my
you
God.
you can't see it, but Marcus did just give me the international signal for a finger.
Oh, yeah, just so you guys know, we are in the same house together, but we're in different rooms. So, just so you know.
Just so we can finger.
What's happening?
So how did that experience go
Okay,
watching
so
The
you're in
Crow
the
of
other
all
room
movies?
right now,
Yeah.
air fingering.
Air
Wow.
fingering the air.
Oh, my God. So, how did it go? What happened?
It went good. So we got done. Okay, I'm just going to close it up here real quick. The event happened, and it happened. It happened.
You sound
during
like
the
you're
needle
presenting
in the
this in
chest
court.
scene.
Oh my God.
That was when we were getting into the meat and potatoes of it. I had told my buddy, you got to sit 3 seats down at least with your, and I don't know why I just said sit in another row, but I said you got to sit 3 seats down.
I want you to know what's happening.
To make this work. So she's moving all over the place.
Oh.
And
Damn.
things are happening that
Whoa.
I didn't know things could. It's just like
You're doing a good job.
You gotta
Wow.
stay quiet.
As you aggressively yell at her.
So we get done, and the crow gets done. We don't really say anything to each other. It's kind of this awkward stirring in your own juices in the theater of Odessa.
Oh,
Right.
God.
And we get out of the theater, and we walk out, and we're about to. My dad was picking this all up, and my dad looks down at us, and my zipper was unzipped, and her zipper was unzipped. Still, we didn't zip up, and my dad just looks at us and say, "You kids need to zip up."
Oh, my God.
And then I got like, my dad talked to me afterwards. We kind of had a talk about it. Just went
You were
through
like, I couldn't help it. I was watching Fun Boy get stabbed in the chest with hypodermic.
So that was my event, one event of the Crow.
Man. So that was your second time seeing it?
That was my second time, yeah.
The early movie makeouts, I never experienced a movie makeout. Did you guys over at Creep Street?
Harry Potter.
God damn it.
I took I was in 7th grade and I took an 8th grade girl.
Oh.
Well, you were driven
took
somewhere.
an
You
older
didn't take
lady
her.
to the theater that night, and we saw The Philosopher's Stone.
And so did she.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow. I don't really think I had any movie makeout situations in a movie theater. I think there was some, sitting in someone's basement movie smooching. But I just felt really uncomfortable with anything like in public, like even like anyone holding my hand.
I think that's
like,
very
in
natural.
public, I was like, this is inappropriate.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is I wasn't fuckable. I guess.
I wouldn't make out unless people were watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dylan was the exact opposite.
I need an audience if this is going to work.
He doesn't go to dollar
He's
theaters. He
still
goes
like
to
that.
opening night to do it.
Yeah.
That's what this whole trip has been about, actually, just so others can watch
the-
us fuck.
Trying to get Mo out of her shell.
Right.
So there's been like maybe 3 memorable times, and only one time did making out happen. So I went to see Hope Floats twice on 2 different.
Stop it. Stop.
I saw it 2 different times on 2 different dates, and seeing Hope Floats twice is the
That's an
worst
ass.
experience you can imagine.
That should be the plot of, like, if they ever reboot The Crow. A guy seeks vengeance after having to see Hope Floats twice.
First time I saw it was with I was at a double date, and my friend made out. They pulled a Marcus, and the second time I just went by myself and was. I went on a date. Let's be clear. I wasn't like, that movie's so fucking good.
Right. It required a second viewing to really get it.
Really want
I
to see
see
how
what
Harry
you mean.
Connick
Okay.
pulled off the character. And so nothing happened, but I saw that movie twice, and I was so frustrated that I saw it twice. Another time I went to see the movie The Dreamers. Do you guys remember that movie?
Yeah.
No.
Was that one with Michael Pitt? Was that
Yes.
like the NC-17 movie?
Yeah, it was NC-17.
Yeah. I never saw it, but I remember it was a big deal because it was like very steamy.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the big thing that they do that I think gets to the NC-17 rating, he has a picture of her that he hides between his dick and balls. And they show her finding it. She like peels back his member and sees the Polaroid under there.
Oh,
Wow.
gee.
That's so crazy.
I never seen this. Is this like he just walks around with it?
Yeah,
kind
with
of
his
thing?
pants up, and I mean, he's not naked, but yeah, he
Right.
has it like as a way to keep her close to his groin in like a sweet sexual way, I guess. Maybe
Wow.
they played it like it was very tender, so maybe it was. But I was with a girl at that time, and she was really wanting to make out.
Oh.
And I guess, I don't know, for some reason, maybe I thought I knew this movie was artistic, so I was like, we shouldn't. You know?
Like, we need to pay attention.
Yeah, I said, I got to look at the cinematography. There was no one else in the theaters except us, and we didn't even make out. The third time, like, I probably should have made out was with my current girlfriend, who is also a research assistant on this episode, as she's sort of an expert on corvids.
Yes.
Yes.
We went to see the movie Australia together in an early date of ours.
Oh, yeah. Baz Luhrmann.
Hugh Jackman, Baz Luhrmann, Nicole Kidman, sort of a love letter to Australia.
Yeah.
But what it's really doing is showing this tragic moment in their history as they did they would kidnap Aboriginal children. Nicole Kidman and Hugh Jackman didn't.
Oh, I see.
To be clear, as actors, they never did that.
Right.
But they were trying to stop it in the movie. And
I see.
It's a long movie. It's an epic.
Yeah, it is. I remember that.
And Lucy and I just sat there for about 2.5 hours, looking forward, not touching each other in any way. Mm-hmm. But like in my head, I'm like, I should do something.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. My back was sweaty. So I wasn't
This
as
all
smooth
checks
as Marcus. You know what? If you have any fun making out stories that you want to share with us over at BB Karate Podcast, hit us up. Send us those. We'll read them. BB Karate Podcast
You really-
at
that sounds fun.
gmail.com. Now, let's get into this movie, you guys. Did you like this movie?
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because there's so many elements that could easily have made this film bad.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the fact that he'll just randomly pull out a guitar and shred. Like that could easily fall into like just B-movie silliness, and yet somehow
It works.
It works for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think they do a great job of taking the time And I remember thinking that too, seeing it again. I hadn't seen it in, I don't know, maybe 4 years since we watched it last night again. But it's like those parts, those moments are kind of like it connects you, because we don't do a lot of connecting to who Eric Draven was before The Crow.
No.
And I think it really, he has a band, he has the Hangman's Joke. I mean, come on, they shred, I bet, dude.
They're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Coffee houses all over Detroit
Oh, hell yeah.
are just sad about that they don't have these guys to line up anymore. But you have, this guy who's just, that's his home, is that guitar. If it's not Shelley, his guitar's name probably is Shelley. And it's just, that's where he finds it. That's where he finds his love that he can't go back to anymore because she was so brutally beaten and raped.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, what a good... I didn't think about that at all with, like, that guitar. Wow, Marcus, that was great.
Yeah.
That really, blew my damn mind.
Other than Sarah, it's really his only connection to...
Don't do weird stuff with Sarah. That just gets off.
No, of course.
Right.
This movie opened May 13th, 1994.
Wow. And I'm assuming that was a Friday.
That was. May 13th was a Friday.
May's not a bad release date.
No, it's not.
No.
This movie was originally supposed to come out straight to VHS,
Really?
but Miramax sort of stepped in, gave it an extra boost, and no, we're releasing it at theaters, which ended up being a smart move, because the budget for this ended up being what, Marcus? Do you have that?
$23 million.
And at the end, after box office tally, what did we end up with on this?
$94 million. Over three times what you're getting.
Wow.
That's a box office hit.
4 times, sorry. Yeah.
And you have to think that, they still make money off of it through other,
Yeah,
so
that's just box office. You
Right.
get a video release, rental.
Right.
It
Yep,
had enough
absolutely.
of a cult following especially with the death of Brandon Lee, God rest his soul.
Right.
You're renting that VHS when it comes out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they kept, apparently on the initial VHS release, they kept a stinger. If you watch through the end of the credits, Crow Eyes would pop up, and then it'd be like, this is the last interview with Brandon Lee. And they played the one that's on the special features for this.
Wow.
Which we got to see. And I was talking to you all last night. I think had he survived, this would have been like a star-making performance, because I think he's fantastic in it.
Right. And I was telling Maureen last night, I know, hey, a lot of leading men are good looking, but there was something about him. He had such a unique, striking look. And he spoke in a way that he was very, even watching that interview, he's a very charismatic person. You're very taken with him right away. I think this would have, it seems cliche to make those Heath Ledger comparisons, but I really, you see...
They look alike.
You see, a Heath Ledger in him. You know what I mean? You see this, it's kind of that indescribable quality in him.
Sure. And, there are also some, I don't know, I don't disagree. I thought there are a lot of similarities. The way he talks sometimes is very Joker-esque. I refer to the Joker specifically.
Right.
But I could see Heath Ledger as well. But just like the Joker, Brandon Lee wanted to apply his own makeup because he thought it looked too polished when the people did it, the professionals did it. So, there's these people, the voice is very similar to the Joker at times. When he screams out of nowhere, the way the Joker would go, "Look at me."
Yeah.
You get to hear that sometimes.
Right. And even when he's not he's also, there's sometimes where his voice is very soft and very well spoken, articulate. It's how it fluctuates too but it's not in a way he's not having proper command of his voice. It's a choice. And it's a very, you see these soft, throughout the film you see these wonderful soft moments, when he sees the children trick-or-treating, things like that, these wonderful, you see that this is at its core, this was a good man. He does a really good job at communicating that.
This movie, based off a comic book, not necessarily even a successful comic book.
Pretty much an underground kind of comic book, yeah.
Written by James O'Barr, who's a unique character in himself. He wrote this after his love of his life was killed in a drunk driving accident.
Oh my
he
God.
said it took him 8 years to write because it was so hard for him to do. Very sad, tragic thing. And he just got it. This was his therapy, writing this. Said he started in 81 and finished in 89. Eventually this gets picked up by a lot of different studios. James O'Barr is very counterculture, so he didn't want to he didn't want to just trust it to any studio. There were studios that pitched him on the idea of making it a musical starring Michael Jackson, according to him.
You're kidding me.
No. Can you imagine?
That's amazing.
A musical starring Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Wow.
They clearly...
I don't think they got it.
They missed it. Were they even reading the same comic? It's like, are you serious?
Maybe they were like, Michael Jackson played a scarecrow once.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe he could sing about being a crow. You get $80 million right now.
Right now.
Right.
There, of course, is the tragedy of Brandon Lee's death, but there are also several, because of that, this movie takes on a certain amount of gravitas when it talks about the legends around it and the facts about it. What else should we touch on, Marcus?
We should talk about the cast, not just Brandon Lee in this movie.
Because everyone's so good.
Everyone is. And so many character actors that we've seen throughout the years now in a lot of different things. But, along with Brandon Lee, we have Ernie Hudson, just top of the line, Sergeant Albrecht, who's just, he's a man's man, he's a cop's cop. He doesn't play dirty, doesn't want to do what the Detroit PD wants him to do. He doesn't want to keep his mouth shut.
Right. And because he did the right thing, he ends up getting bumped down off detectives and just becomes a trollman.
His performance is absolutely great.
Ernie Hudson is one of those guys who, again, just doesn't look like he's acting. Ernie Hudson looks like he's he's Ernie Hudson in every movie.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, anything that he's in.
He's so good in Basketball Diaries.
Yes. Yeah.
Love that movie.
I've
who
never
else we got?
seen it. I gotta watch it.
You have a fun one too. Michael Massey, fun boy. He's been in a lot of different things too. Of course, now he's passed on, but we'll get into it a little bit more. He was the one who unfortunately pulled the trigger when the death of Brandon Lee occurred with the prop gun and everything too. You have Michael Wincott, great villain guy. He's been a villain in quite a few
Michael
movies.
Wincott plays
Top Dollar, the main villain. So you have him. You also have David Patrick Kelly as T-Bird.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He has been in a lot of things. I mean, recently you've seen him as Charlie in John Wick, the cleanup guy.
Yep.
He was also Sully in Commando. Which is a great little bit role, too, for the action movie lovers. There's so many people in this movie, just along with it, that just round it out. And these characters all have arcs in a way, too.
Yep.
Every single bad guy, to Albrecht, to Top Dollar, to T-Bird, to all these little guys, how fun, like, the Crow chasing each one is its own little movie in itself, too.
Right.
And to finding that one and having to kill him, but you get these little bits and pieces of its own little movie in each fight that you go to kill these guys.
So, Creep Street, other than, we all agree Brandon Lee is certainly a lead, and he's also the standout. Who else were some of the actors that stuck out to you guys, or characters?
Totally agree with what you guys were saying, the characters you listed off. No, the performances are so strong. I'm totally blanking, the lead police officer?
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson. I always want to say Carl Weathers.
That makes sense.
Sure. I can see it.
They're I know they're not the same person. It's kind of like I do the same thing with Martin Sheen and Michael Douglas. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I know they're different people, but they become one person in my mind. Anyway, I was really impressed with him and really just all of the people on his list that he was going after. Kind of like what you were saying, Mark, about how each person, villain, or whatever person he's attacking is kind of its own chapter. It could be its own movie. I could see this being turned into a series, possibly.
Or a musical with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a musical with Michael Jackson. I just thought those characters did such a good job with their maybe shorter time on screen or whatever. Just immediately you fucking hated them.
Right.
They did such a good job of not caring that they were about to be murdered,
right.
you know?
Maybe my favorite was Lawrence Mason as Tintin.
Yeah.
I loved it. He's also I think only about a year later, he was in Hackers.
Right, yeah.
Who was he? What was his hacker name? Do you remember?
Wasn't it Razor or Acid Burn?
I think
or
it was.
something?
Was he Acid Burn? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was one of those guys. Yeah.
What Zero Cool is what they ended up
Zero Cool was
spelling.
the main one.
Right. Or was Acid Burn Angelina Jolie?
I can't remember.
We got to watch that movie.
Yeah, we got to watch Hackers now.
Oh, Hackers is just a classic.
Angelina Jolie Nipshot, but that's not why it's a good movie. So that's the cast, and this movie had all sorts of problems. It was shot in North Carolina, which is a right-to-work state, which sort of sets up an issue here. Not that right-to-work states are always bad to work in, but you're working with a lot less control in terms of, we need a union specialist to oversee all stunts. So they're working with non-union guys, which I was a non-union actor for a very long time. I don't think it lessens the quality.
Right.
I think it can, the production as a whole, if not overseen by some type of union whose job it is to make sure there's shit going down that should be going down. I think that's where you can get into some problems. But this movie was plagued by a lot of different injuries, weather problems.
Yeah.
There was...
I mean, it was always raining, for Christ's sake.
budget issues. In fact, you mentioned the models, Dylan. They didn't have enough money to build like huge sets, so a lot of them were models. Like a lot of the car chases, a lot of the city shots were all done on model shots. So because it was cheaper.
Also, quick side note: Lawrence Mason's character in Hackers was Lord Nikon.
Thank you,
wow, okay.
Lord
Sorry.
Nikon. That means Angelina Jolie's was acid burn.
Yeah, I think she was acid burn. Just wanted to clear that up before the mobs came forth.
Before we get hacked, before we get canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this movie went through some backstage drama as well. I know the director, who also directs another sort of sci-fi classic and a moody piece called Dark City.
Yeah.
He also directed Gods of Egypt, I think. So,
Yeah.
Jesus.
I think
So what
he
are
did
you
The
gonna do?
Knowing with Nick Cage.
Was Nick Cage in Gods of Egypt?
No, but the director of Crow, Gods of Egypt, he directed The Knowing.
Oh, The Knowing.
The Knowing. Didn't hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, The Knowing with Nick Cage, yeah.
yeah, anytime you direct Nick Cage, you're winning.
Yeah.
Fully.
And then he wanted to do the whole thing in black and white and have the flashbacks of his actual life be in color. I think they did about as good as you could. The studio didn't want a black and white film.
Right.
But what they did was great. It was
Oh,
about
I
as
thought
black
so
as white
too.
as you can get.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally monotone, just very bleak throughout, and just changing the filters like they mentioned. You can, like we watched on the bonus features about doing it, and having like the red show up for revenge, kind of when you know that
Right.
it's this kind of time to
Right.
when the crow's going to show up, and then
Yes.
also just seeing the blood too as well, which
Yeah.
is great. I wish they would have made the blood a deeper red, kind of just to show that offset
Right.
during
Yeah.
those times. But I think as far as the mood and that they were trying to set, besides black and white, this is even better.
Right.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
And to note just farther, just to note more on the models and everything, like I said earlier, it had that expressionistic quality and they stood in ways that weren't natural.
Right, they had the leaning.
Yeah, they kind of almost Tim Burton-esque.
I was just gonna say
like,
it's not quite Tim Burton, but almost.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah.
And it gives you this feeling of being unsettled. Everything is a little off kilter. It really sets that mood straight away. And then, of course, typically before blood is shed, on this very monochrome palette, you have a splash of red. There's that great shot of Tony Todd walking up the stairs.
Right.
And behind him, it's backlit. It looks like
Yeah.
the fires of hell. And you
Yeah.
know that his number's going to get called pretty damn soon.
Yeah, and
It's great.
Right, and it's Devil's Night. You
Yeah.
know,
Right, this movie takes place on Devil's Night, the night before Halloween. Movie has all kinds of spookiness. Before we get into the spookiness, let's just go ahead. I mean, you can read for hours about this movie and what people think about it in terms of, or not what people think about it. We'll talk more about that, but just the backstory of behind the scenes stuff. And there's a lot of people who confirmed that everyone was on cocaine except Brandon Lee, who was on this very strict diet to the point where someone sneezes on set and Brandon Lee says, well, someone just wasted $50.
That's the best joke. That's the best joke.
It's so good.
that is really funny.
So who knows what really went on, but what we ended up with, and we'll talk about this before we get into sort of what I want to hear from you guys, which is some of the lore, maybe around Devil's Night, maybe around Halloween, and some of the stuff around crows or corvids.
If you are interested in more of a deep dive into the origins of Halloween and Devil's Night and that kind of thing, not to promote our
Please
own
do.
shit, but I'm going to do that right now. We do have an episode on that on Creep Street Podcast if you're interested. The history around Halloween and the days around Halloween, I think are so fascinating, and they go back, thousands of years. It's been around for so long and it's been affecting people, and I think the fact that this time of year has had this kind of feeling to it all over the world for so long means something, and it's interesting.
Obviously, the Halloween itself goes back, thousands of years. It has its roots in Celtic mythology. But the reason where like costumes even come from was, obviously people felt back then that this time of year at the solstice, the whatever that curtain was between the living and the dead was at its thinnest, and spirits, both good and bad, could pass through back and forth. And the reason why people wore costumes is because they wanted to trick any evil spirits that might be out looking for them. And then, of course, as time has progressed, Devil's Night kind of took on its own thing in pop culture and kind of made its own little little thing. But yeah.
You know, Dylan, you were talking about the veil is thinnest, the costume to hide from evil.
Yes.
That's kind of fitting with the Crow.
Absolutely.
It's very fitting.
You know, he was able to come back maybe because it's Halloween.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. And also Halloween too, or Samhain is like the pagan Celtic holiday that it originally kind of stems from, is a holiday or a feast or a festival that's very connected with fire. And so that is interesting then that Devil's Night, basically what Devil's Night is, it's not like as hard and fast of a thing as like a Halloween or something like that.
Right.
But basically the idea is that it's a night where you can, you know, fuck around and get wild. And it ranges anywhere from like originally just like, oh, like this is the night of like tricksters and there are, you know, goblins out or whatever. So like we can do like fun little tricks on people. And then just
or
like
set an entire city on fire.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And as time goes on, as everything does, it just turns to shit. And so for some reason people were like, we should really just pop off and start lighting fire, like do like serious vandalism. And for many, many reasons, it really clung on to Detroit. So Devil's Night isn't really a big thing in at least much of the US, but in Detroit, it really, really became a huge cultural and societal issue to like during the 80s, I believe the 70s and the 80s, it was, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of fires were just all around the city and at like structural big fires, you know, not just like lighting a trash can on fire type thing. So it's like what you're seeing in the movie, because this movie takes place in Detroit, I'm sure it is, you know, amped up obviously for the movie, but like Detroit does have a lot of issues with, or used to, I don't think it's as much anymore, but like with inner city violence and vandalism and fires going on Devil's Night, so much that they like have something, or they used to have something called Angel Night. And so there would be like angel volunteers that would like roam the streets to like make sure nothing bad was happening on Devil's Night, which I think is a good thing. They just sound like boring hall monitors, but I think they were doing the right thing.
Right.
And Dylan, there's obviously a lot of symbology in this movie. What do you think that some of the crow stands for? Because there's a lot of lore attached to this bird, which isn't a crow in the movie. It is a raven.
Right. Oh, really? So the bird they used in the film was a raven?
Yeah,
that's right.
It was a raven.
Well, actually, it's a good thing that crows and ravens both fall into the category of corvids, along with magpies and jays. So
all very intelligent birds.
All very intelligent birds. And thank you to Lucy for obviously crows have long been associated with whether it was death or sort of being messengers between the living and the dead. I just want to state a source here. I found a great article about it, but it's called The Mystery of Crow Funerals by Brent Swancer at Mysterious Universe. I just want to read this quote here, because we've always known that crows did have this incredible intelligence, but recent scientific inquiries have shown they're actually far more intelligent than we originally thought. Here's a quote directly from the article. Whenever one of their own species dies, other crows in the area will flock to the scene and linger about the corpse, squawking loudly and refusing to leave, in a strange gathering that has long been suspected to be some sort of mourning ritual and contemplation of their dead being carried out by the animals. A very in-depth research was done by a PhD student named Kaylee Swift and a biologist named John Marsluff from the University of Washington. This experiment was very interesting. They did it over a 2-year period. What they would do is they would have people in masks. So like one person had a caveman mask and the other person had a Dick Cheney mask. The guy in the caveman mask would feed them, and then the guy in the Cheney mask would harass them. Well, obviously after a while, the crows knew who was good, who was bad. But they started to realize that even when someone else would wear the mask, even when there were crows there that had not seen them before, they knew to be afraid of the Dick Cheney mask, because apparently they're able to teach each other things, which is very fascinating. And they had one person in a mask, they had a crow that had died, and they just held it. They were walking through, and the crows began to mob them and attack them. And even when they didn't have the dead bird with them, they would still get mobbed and attacked, because because the crows would recognize them.
Yeah, they remember people.
And they were able to teach other crows who weren't there that that's how you treat this specific person.
How fitting is that with like the crow going around and being like, hey, there's that motherfucker, I remember him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it really is. It's like their ability to hold a grudge is incredible.
So tell me something, like, and this is something that I'm just curious about for both of you. With what you guys deal with on your podcast and everything too, and what you guys talk about, how do you feel, or what are your thoughts each on after death? What's your thought? Do you feel like this could happen? Like, do you think that somebody could come back to take vengeance, and maybe not by in their body, but by a spirit? What are your thoughts on like something like that, as far as coming back, not from the dead per se and raising up, but do you feel that that's possible in your thoughts and your opinions?
Well, I mean, those are, obviously big questions. Now, obviously, in the way that it happens in the movie, I have no idea.
Right.
When it comes to things like the afterlife, I have this theory that it's a lot more simple than we think it is. I think that a lot of stuff they're working on right now with electromagnetics and gravitational waves. I know it sounds like I'm going off on another subject.
Go for it, bro.
Literally a few years ago, they were able to definitively prove the existence of gravitational waves. These are actual gravitational waves in the fabric of space, in the fabric of space-time, which means maybe that fabric can be torn or open. And I mean, that's why I think all this stuff, I think it might be more science-based than we actually think it is. It sounds like fantasy.
Right.
But first and foremost, obviously I have no idea. But I just have this feeling, this feeling inside me that a lot of these things that we think one might be considered science, the other might be considered fantasy, I think they're more closely related than we might understand yet.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I haven't had any specific experience to necessarily feel, yes, I definitely believe something along these lines is, a possible, or no, I think it's absolutely like, no, I don't think so. But this topic though, or like this theme, I mean, has come up again and again and again in stories and books and plays and everything for as long back as there have been people. Really, the idea of like a vengeful ghost, or
Right.
someone coming back to get revenge on what you did to them while they were alive. Like, I guess it's kind of the same idea as almost like karma too, where it's like you kill someone else and you think, oh, since that person is dead, that means that there's nothing that can be done about it anymore. And this whole kind of idea like flips it on its head, that it's like you're not as in control as you think you are. I can like pretty confidently say I don't think it's like literally a crow,
Sure.
that
Right.
can like make you like, a zombie man. But this idea of getting vengeance or making things right or finishing your unfinished business from the grave is like really prevalent and kind of a common theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was touching on, because you see like spirits that come back after a gruesome death or, or
Yeah.
anything like that, and that haunt the place, or that are supposedly haunting the place where the death happened. And we hear that all the time with
Yeah.
Right.
ghost hunters or whatever, paranormal show you're watching. And we see that, but can it work the other way too, to where if this person or, being loved one dies, do you think that their spirit could come back in a way to avenge that death in
Right.
a way?
That's,
Not necessarily just raising from the dead in Detroit with a damn crow and talking to...
Right.
Totally. Right. Yeah.
And, in the case of the crow, it's kind of a because as you guys know, like, and as our listeners would know, there's different types of hauntings. Say the crow was a real thing, that would not be a residual haunting. Residual haunting is kind of what it sounds like. Say they're like who's John Dillinger. They say you can see his ghost like running by the Biograph Theater. That doesn't mean it's his soul and he's conscious, and that it's like when there's these moments of high intensity that it kind of leaves an imprint.
Right.
It doesn't mean that person is still consciously there haunting. It's like an imprint of energy that replays.
Yeah.
Now, something like the crow is obviously not like that. This is an intelligent being. This ventures into something more, call it what you will, demonic but it obviously would be more of an intelligent haunting. Obviously, he's coming back. This is the other thing. He's coming back in his own form.
Right.
Yeah, he's coming back in his own form, and he pops out of the grave, so all of his wounds have healed, and
Right.
I suppose the blood is back in his body. Like, he's coming back in a full human form, so whatever happened post-death in terms of, probably not an autopsy, but, like, what do they, when they drain
They
your
drain
blood?
everything.
Right.
Yeah, I know what you're
Embalming.
talking about, but yeah.
What's it called?
As we know, he has healing properties.
Right.
Perhaps yes, as he's clawing his way out of the grave, his decomposed, but maybe it's like this
regenerating.
Because when he first comes out of that coffin, he's like a newborn baby.
Yeah,
he's like,
in
what
pain
the
and he
fuck?
doesn't understand.
He's clearly in pain. I mean, that could, I'm sure after a year of, what happens to your body when you're dead, I'm sure if that's the case, you would have to assume it took him a few minutes to regenerate.
And this is where he would have met a deleted character.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
In the movie we see that was produced, the crow is his guide. It is a non-verbal being that he can communicate with that obviously has some type of supernatural effect on him. In the original script and from the comic book, there was a character named what? Mark?
Skull Cowboy.
Skull Cowboy, which I guess there were actual scenes shot with this guy, or was he just tied on to play?
Well, apparently I may have missed it, or I may have had my head turned during the deleted scenes, but I think my wife saw one and she was like, oh, I think he was that guy in the hat, which is how he's depicted in the comic books.
Yeah.
Just a skeleton with cowboy hat on. And this man this guy would have been a spirit and a kind of guide to Eric Draven as the Crow, telling him his mission and kind of the rules of everything too, which in a way I like about the Crow because it is just bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Like, you're dead, here we are, we're taking vengeance now, and this is, we don't know anything about it kind of. But in this form, in this movie, with this character, we would have been explained kind of the rules to where he can't deviate from his vengeance
Go kill
mission.
these people, and this is all you do. Don't
and
do
this is
anything
it.
else.
And once you kill everybody who had anything to do with the death of Shelley, then you will live peaceful or die peacefully and be together with her again, and so on. But they deleted that character.
Yeah, they did. And they deleted other scenes that sort of, it was a more cookie crumb thing than what the final print is, where Eric Draven sort of realizes what he has to do. Like the original arcade scene, if you guys remember from last night, where there was the victim of another assault by the gang that he has to kill, and he, through some type of empathic touch, is able to jog that memory of like, oh, it's these guys.
Right.
So in the version that is eventually released, he's more like this roving spirit with an instinctual mission. Like a dog after a bone in a way. It's like, I have to find these, the crow's helping me find them, which I kind of dig.
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked that it was kind of this unexplained thing, that it just was like, okay, we understand that he is back and that the crow is like doing something, and that he just that it's just inherent in him to, like, he's just so full of rage and vengeance that like this is the only thing he, like,
and he does
what
a really
else
good
would
job, Brandon Lee does, of wavering between the joy of what he's doing and killing and the pain that he experiences every second of like what is actually happening.
Right.
I think he's really good at that. And I bring up Brandon Lee, we should go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, which is the death that he goes through, or that happens to him, the real life Brandon Lee, on set. And there's so much written about it. There's so much lore about it. It was really just a careless fuck up that ended up being his downfall. There's a lot of guns used in this movie, obviously.
Right.
And certain stunt coordinators were sent home early to save budget.
Oh my God.
Oh, boy.
There were about 3 days left on shooting for him, and they were going back to shoot the original scene in which he finds Shelley being raped and attacked by the guys who are trying to evict her out of the building. And in the original scene, he comes in and it's like, Shelley, he's shot. That gun was loaded, and it was going to be a close-up weapon, which means they need to have the chamber look full because it's like a 6-shooter revolver type.
Right.
And so they used empty bullets with a bullet tip, whereas normally they use just shells filled with gunpowder. They're like, let's show it, and I don't even know why it would ever be shot, but they didn't take out the firing mechanic of the bullet. So it wasn't a full shot because there was no gunpowder, but what it did do was spark enough to get what's called a squib load, where the bullet tip, the actual bullet itself, was lodged in the barrel.
Oh God.
Right.
What ends up happening later is that gun is like, okay, cut. The gun is put down. There's safety checks that each weapon should go through on set.
Yeah.
This weapon just slipped through that check.
Wow.
They always check the barrel, and what they ended up doing was loading flash rounds, just gunpowder, basically, into empty shells. And what that did was, the first time it was shot, is it became just a working gun at that point.
Yeah, just the projectile, just that little projectile that's in there, the tip of that bullet, then just
Is
pierces
with gunpowder.
Yeah, and
Wow.
the spark is enough, and the gunpowder, and releasing it from the chamber is enough to shoot that projectile, and just like a bullet coming at you.
It shot Brandon Lee in the stomach, and they operated on him for about 6 hours. And very sadly and tragically, he died at 28 years old
Wow.
of a misloaded safety fuck up on set.
I just got to think, if you're an actor too, I don't know how it is done now, especially in action movies, but you see so much action, and just like I think of Army of the Dead that I just watched, and how so many automatic weapons are being used and stuff like that at one time. And if you are an actor who's this has happened before, I know you have confidence in the union guys, like you mentioned before,
Right.
now, because of course you're gonna have union on set, and this is their job. They're gonna go to jail if something happens because it's their job if they didn't do it. But
Right.
also, if I am in a movie, I would want to be checking that stuff too. If this is gonna be the gun that's gonna be pointed at me, I want to check something. I want to check it as well.
And to be clear, once again, I've worked on a lot of non-union sets.
Yeah.
I don't think they're necessarily unprofessional. However, the movie studio could not have sent a stunt coordinator or a safety anybody home. Like, there has to be on the set.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't.
Absolutely.
You just can't produce without that. So there would have been things, and there would have been things in place. The actor Michael Massey, who was a fun boy, who pulled the trigger, said he couldn't act for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, I
and
would feel
sort of was haunted
terrible.
by it
Oh,
for
I
the
feel
rest of
so
his
bad
life.
for
That
him.
he pulled the trigger. Nothing he could have done about it. It wasn't his job.
Yeah.
Right.
You see, you can find a couple of interviews with him where he just briefly touches on it, kind of in interviews. They asked him about it, one in 2005. You can find that on YouTube, and then another in 2016, like right before he died, too, talking about it as well. He just talks about how hard it hit him, and as it should, where you have this trust in the people on set and everything, too, that this should never happen. This shouldn't even be a thought, to where somebody is going to get killed by a bullet on set.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're the one who it happens to, and it's not happens to, but you're the cause of it in a way. You're the effect of it, and Brandon Lee is the effect of it, but it's just that haunting to where he couldn't work for a year, he couldn't talk about it, he couldn't hold a relationship, because he didn't mean it. I mean, he killed a guy, not his fault, in it, but he technically killed a guy, and it's just that rough.
Do you guys know, was there any fallout with the studio? Was there...
The death was ruled accidental.
Right.
But Linda Lee, Bruce Lee's widow and Brandon Lee's mom, did file suit and won. I've heard different estimates. I think it's around $3 million, which oddly seems pretty low.
Yeah, that's not enough.
Considering. And I think because of this, there are things in place where this probably will never happen again because of this tragedy.
Right.
Yeah.
So everyone's safer for it. Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, is in charge of the estate at this point, and she has a really fun Instagram. She posts really fun pictures of her dad and Brandon. And growing up, and I think this is interesting, and I don't want to harp too much on Brandon Lee's death. I think there's been enough about that. But growing up, I thought, through word of mouth, ninjas killed Bruce Lee.
Right.
Through word of mouth.
Was that like a rumor you had heard?
Yep. I thought Bruce Lee's death was mysterious, and then when Brandon Lee's death happened, I thought Bruce Lee's death happened in the same way.
Sure.
Because on Game of Death, the unfinished Bruce Lee movie that the Hong Kong studios crudely put together and finished anyway, that happens.
Yeah.
Right? People are trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And so they do that through a movie scene. That does happen to Brandon Lee. But I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened twice to a family.
Right.
So there are a lot of, the idea that the Lee family's cursed, the idea that, once something like this happens, everyone's like, oh man, Brandon Lee was really obsessed with death. He listened to the Doors a lot and would drive a hearse around.
Right.
And, it just fits the narrative you want to hear.
Right.
Totally.
I mean, and honestly, like, think about how many things we say that if you were to play back, if we were to, you would think, oh my God, it's like he knew.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's so many offhand. I mean, because it is in the commentary, in the interview we watched last night with him. He said that thing about we know we're gonna die, but we still think of life as a endless well of every time you see a full moon, you don't think that that might be my last full moon, or how many full moons do I have left? Because we all have a certain amount of full moons left.
Right.
But we don't think about it like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to harp on it too much, but it makes me even more angry when people talk like either about Heath Ledger or Brandon Lee or anyone in that sense who's died. People don't just get into their craft that much. I mean, who knows? Maybe it has happened, and I'm sure it has. I don't want to just dismiss that. But when you're not respecting the life that these two people, especially Brandon Lee and Bruce Lee, lived, and they provided so much, you know, to a lot of people, and it's just no, it's not these conspiracy theories of just people on set trying to rig props and stuff like that to knock them off and and everything, and it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
It's a little gross, and to be Bruce Lee did not die of a ninja assassination. By all accounts, it
was a Viking attack.
No, he went to what some, you know, it's not confirmed, but he went to what some call his mistress's house or his friend's house, depending on who you talk to. And he had a headache and went to sleep and didn't wake up due to like a brain swelling.
Yeah.
And it was that small of a thing. It wasn't anything grand. It wasn't even as tragic as Brandon Lee's in a lot of ways. It was just this good night, never see you again.
I could say something very ominous tonight, have something in my heart that I don't know about.
And I'd be like, it's like Marcus knew.
Yeah, it's like he knew.
Yeah.
And he just, I think someone came in the middle of the night and needed him gone. You know.
Right.
So let's go ahead, man. Let's jump into this wonderful film. Any scenes you guys want to talk about up top, Creep Street?
There was one. I remember when I first saw it, the one that kind of stuck with me. One, because it's so chilling, but two, it's a great performance by both men. Oh, what's his name? The guy, the one he duct tapes into the car.
That's
T-Bird.
T-Bird. I think there's something so good about that scene.
When Eric is killing Tintin?
Because when Eric is killing T-Bird, the guy in the car. I just think that scene is so well acted because there's something about this guy. I think he knows, just because of the line of work he's in, he's gonna die someday and probably young.
Right.
And there's this moment where he's being taped into the car and he has this moment of he's realizing there's something after this, and it's probably not going to be good for me.
Right.
And because he's not even that worried about dying, suddenly his world is rocked. Everything he thought he knew. You see this man having this huge revelation right before his death, to the point where it's almost like he's not even as concerned with dying. It's just a wonderful performance in like a span of 10 seconds.
Dylan, there's a moment in that scene that I think it's the same moment you're referencing, and it's where he realizes that the guy who's doing this to him is not what he understands, right? It's not, oh, I fucked with this guy back in the day and now he's coming at me. He's like, no, I killed you. And it's such a great line. I don't know if it was written like this or he was just improvising when he's getting taped in. He's like, there's no coming back.
Yeah.
This is the really real world.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like such this childish way of looking at it. Like he reverts back to this sheer state of panic.
Right.
I agree. That's a really well acted scene and scary because Brandon Lee doesn't talk.
Yeah. And that's why it's like when he's saying that, he's saying it to himself. Because he's coming to that realization.
Yeah, he's like realizing this,
He knows that whatever's waiting for him is not going to be pretty.
Right.
Like I said, it's not so much dying he's scared of in that moment. He's scared realizing, oh, right before I die, I realize all of this shit.
Right.
That life is not, that the world is not as I thought.
And he knows what he's done, too.
Exactly. And he knows what, it's a incredibly, very well acted scene.
Yeah.
And Maureen, do you want to talk about swallowing bullets?
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. I'm so happy you remembered. Now, at the risk of being crass,
Please be crass.
if this scene was acted with a group of women instead of men, no one would be impressed. Because I don't find this to be difficult. I gotta be honest.
I agree.
I was watching this and I was like, these are Tylenol PMs.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Like, I understand that they're metal and they're bullets, so like this is gonna like be bad for my like stomach lining, I guess. But I didn't find that to be hard.
No, you can swallow a quarter and it's the same impact as a bullet.
Right. And and it's just like, once again, at the risk of being crass, straight women / basically what I'm saying, it's not put something in the back of your throat isn't really, it's not the manliest thing I've heard.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was like, this is very odd to me. I wish him well, and God bless. True. Basically what I'm saying is, since they don't suck dick, I understand it's probably more difficult for them, but like, honestly, if they just sucked a couple dicks, it would solve their problems, and they would be like, hey, maybe we don't need to swallow bullets anymore.
Even as a kid, I remember watching this scene being like, I guess it's hard, but like...
It's just like this is, like a big vitamin.
The cigar putting out of the tongue is more scary.
Oh, yeah. Go into the bathroom. All of you lick a urinal, then take a shot.
Yeah, there we go.
Let me see you do that shit.
Hell yeah. That's real hard. Yeah.
It's not like they're swallowing dangerous pieces of explosives. To fire a bullet, nothing in your body will do that.
Yeah. Nothing.
Right.
You could fart, it's not going to shoot.
Unless you're Human Torch, I guess. And that would be the only time. Yeah.
I mean, if it comes out in the back of it, if it hits just right.
Yeah. I guess if you do take a dump and it falls on the porcelain at just the right angle.
Just hits it right at the,
We have gotten crass. Those are two wonderful scenes.
What about yours, Adam?
If I had to bring up a scene, it's going to be outside of the big gunfight, like John Woo scene. I think for me, it might be one of the softer scenes.
Yeah.
I think for me, I really enjoy, I'll bring up two. I really like when he is dealing with remembering everything. And first time he walks in and he paints his face and there's like music sort of playing. And I really like when he allows Sarah to see him.
Oh, me too.
I think they build that moment a lot where there's all these times where he could turn around and she would know and all this stuff. But he's torn between doing that and messing with her life, and he chooses to do it. And, you know.
Right.
I don't know. I just thought that's, once again, a well-acted scene. The little kid's great in it.
Yeah.
And we get to see the softer side against this very ugly movie by the set standards. Like, it's like gritty, it's dark, it's not even in color. And then all of a sudden, he hugs this kid because he misses this little girl that he's helping raise because the mother's a heroin addict.
Right.
Oh.
I really enjoyed that. What about you, Marcus?
There's two. I would think the first one that comes to mind, not to be cliche, but it's not the table shootout itself.
It was the opening murder, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
I could tell you were just like, fuck yeah. You were just pounding popcorn and like,
fuck tenant rights.
Fuck yeah.
Tenant rights. It's, oh my God, this is Rent.
Fucking people need to get a job.
That's right. This is Rent. This movie is Jonathan Larson's.
But my scene where I get most excited is at the end of the shootout when he's walking up to Skank and it's just like the lights flashing and him, you get just him walking up to him and it's just Skank, like, I'm dead, like showing it like half his face, like Skank's dead, man, like this, I'm a new guy kind of thing,
right?
And it's just him, and he doesn't even say anything. I don't think he says anything, and just pushes him out the window.
No, he goes, Skank's dead.
Yes,
and he goes, that's right.
That's right, yeah. But it's just that whole walk up to him, and also, I really like the pawn shop scene with him and the pawn shop. It's just so ominous and so slow, and he's talking in a normal voice again. He's like Eric Draven talking, but it's just in these very light kind of one sentence phrases. It's so good and ominous, and it's a lot of fun in somebody.
That's another scene that I was talking about, right, where it's like he's dancing between this joy of getting his vengeance, and then he finds the wedding ring and he's like this crying baby again. Yeah,
and then he turns just this angry guy. Yeah.
It's so well done, and that knife in the hand, that was another thing. The studio was worried about the violence, so they would cut away. Like in the original cut of that movie, you get to see the knife penetrate the hand, but they cut that away. There's all sorts of other violent stuff in this
something
movie
I think that also, it just speaks to how good this movie is. This could have so easily been written off as like a Batman clone.
Yeah.
Like not even the film, but the comic. Like when you think about it, a gloomy guy in a corrupt city getting revenge. I mean, even a crow is a winged flying thing.
Right.
It could so easily be, but when you're watching it, it should be like so easy to dismiss as like a Batman knockoff, but it's not. Like you come out of it not feeling that at all.
And a lot of critics did write it off as a Batman knockoff, and I could see certainly even the church scene when he walks into the church, like it's very much the final fight scene of Batman, or at least it's influenced by that. But I think it does really well of being its own tone and themes. Any other scenes stick out to you guys?
Truly, the ones that you guys listed were other ones that I also was into and I liked.
I think while you're thinking about that, I think another one that is a really just subtle, easy scene is between he and Ernie Hudson. When he breaks in and he's just trying to be a normal person and talk to him about because he realizes how much he cared for Shelley and her death and what he did for her. It's that really sad line of like, you're gonna disappear again? And he's like, I just want to use your front door. Like, I'm just tired fucking Aaron Draven at this point.
I was also just gonna say any scene with Michael Wincott in it too.
Oh yeah,
what a villain! Incest, murder.
He's got that gravelness in his
Yes.
voice.
Well, here we are again, gentlemen.
It wouldn't matter what the book was. I could listen to that guy read to me all day long.
Great.
Oh,
book.
yeah.
Totally.
And he does it in a puffy shirt, like the whole time. Like
He's dressed like a pirate the entire time.
Right. Yeah, and that's the other thing. He's not like he's not like jacked. I mean, he dresses like a musketeer.
Yeah.
But he's still wildly intimidating.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
Wildly intimidating.
Maureen, did you think of the scene you were thinking of?
Oh, I sure did. It was the brother-sister fucking. Yeah. So we touched it. We touched on it. Yeah.
Now-
that ass, that shower scene.
Well, to be clear, we never see them fuck.
Yeah. It's implied.
Her first time on camera, it's just her ass.
Yeah.
Center screen.
She looks great.
You know when you're older, too, when you see a scene like that when you're a kid, you're like, ass.
Yeah.
But now when you look at a scene like that, you're like, how can I remodel my bathroom? What would that run me? What would that cost me to get a shower like that?
It is the first thing I thought about after rewatching this last night with you guys was like, damn, that's a nice shower.
Yeah.
Dude,
nice shower.
that's so funny because the whole scene I was thinking about, I was like, wow, that shower head was in a corner.
Yeah.
I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wait till you see Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate and Creep Street remodeling podcast.
Oh my god, I would die. I would
man.
love that.
We
do
only
is think
remodel
about HGTV.
famous action movie scenes.
Yeah.
Let's just formally start our campaign right now to land a Discovery Plus show.
We remodel your bathroom, then record a podcast in it.
Yeah.
Those are some of our favorite scenes. If you got favorite scenes, let us hear about it. I'd love to hear what some of your favorite scenes were out there. bbkaratepodcast@gmail.com. Before we move on, we should get to, I'm going to truncate this section because there's two major scenes that I want to touch on. They do happen far apart, but I want to put them together because now it's time for the boss fight. Boss fight. And I'm going to start the boss fight at the wonderful shootout at the big conference stage.
As you should.
Yep.
Because everything that leads up to this last half hour, 40 minutes of The Crow, and this is the scene that everybody remembers from The Crow, too. I mean, all scenes should be remembered, but this is the one that everybody loves. And, I mean, everything is good from Wincott to Lee to Tony Todd even too in it. We have Tony Todd, we have Candyman, but it's everything in here is so good. The mannerisms of Brandon Lee jumping up on the table, cross-legged, who fucking cares attitude, to Wincott doing the same thing.
Yep.
To Top Dollar kind of just this, it's me and you, let's just be assholes to each other kind of thing.
And I like that Top Dollar's not intimidated at all.
No, he's not. Yeah.
After he's killed all of his men,
Right.
the guy somehow gets in, and he's just like, oh, God, this
Yeah.
guy, kill him, please. And the gunfight happens, and it's great. It's a lot of fun to watch because normally in gunfight scenes you have the hero diving and taking cover. In this, Brandon Lee doesn't care.
There's no diving. There's no diving. It's not even, this is so John Woo, but not John Woo. Like, it has the settings to where things could be happening as far as running down the table, doing anything, slow motion, spinning around with two guns in his hand or something like that. But it's very rough editing, with the fight. There's darkness. You have gunfight.
It's confusing.
It's confusing. He grabs swords, which is great. I mean, there's so much happening in this that is so much fun.
Yeah, we get hand to hand. We get gunplay. Brandon Lee helped coordinate some of the fight scenes. What'd you guys think of that big gunfight?
I loved it. First of all, I think if John Woo did direct this, it would be called The Dove.
Yeah.
Or just a bunch of crows.
Yeah.
Right. The aesthetic would be different. Instead of like all in black, everyone would kind of there'd be like a lot of light, everyone dressed in white, the occasional dove floating across screen. The scene is great, and you can almost get little hints of the lobby shootout in The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of that. I think pound for pound, that Matrix shootout scene is maybe a little better, but you get these moments in this film where you can tell they were probably inspired by how it's shot is very frenetic. There's no like long drawn out shot.
Right.
It feels very, you feel the chaos.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say the Matrix scene, that the lobby scene, there's a lot more of a smoothness and a gliding to it. You can definitely tell they were probably inspired by how that scene was shot.
I think so. Black
easily.
on black black,
Yeah.
dual guns, just taking a bunch of guns. And we'll move on to where Top Shot we get in sort of this old school sword fight on top of a church.
Yeah.
Him and Top Dollar, Crow and Top Dollar get up there, and
you got everything you want in a final battle. Rain.
You got rain. You got
Epic
moonlight,
location. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just
ninja swords.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, man.
Right.
I mean, it's
And once again, this is a testament to both James O'Barr and the director. That's another thing. It's kind of like suddenly whipping out a guitar and shredding.
Yeah.
It should be stupid.
right.
The fact that he's got a katana in Detroit, it should be stupid.
And the other guy's fighting with a weatherman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It-
yeah.
It should be stupid, but it's not. It's because everything complements each other.
And I think because also that it's not a long fight on top of the church.
Right.
It's probably a 3-minute fight, and it could have been way more drawn out too, and it probably still would have been pretty fun. But no, you have a guy. I mean, yes, Brandon Lee is bleeding now, and he can die again, whatever. But in the same vein, you know that Brandon Lee can kick Top Dollar's ass alive or dead, no matter, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's like Adam and I talk about on every fight scene. Like, you see these main baddies that can't hold a fight. It's usually they're under their second in command that is the bigger boss than they are. And rightfully so. They're the smart ones. They're not the muscle. They're more of the mind. Whereas Tony Todd, I would have loved to seen a fight between Tony Todd with Brandon Lee in that. Like, I wish that was one thing that would have happened. Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen that too. We also talk about this, and maybe Creep Seat agrees with us. Like, I need to see. Well, Steven Seagal has this issue when he's fighting, he doesn't really ever get hurt.
Right.
And even when he's shot, he sort of just dominates. Brandon Lee gets fucked up in this fight scene.
Right.
He's destroyed everyone. He's beaten rooms of 30 men. He's destroyed people who are expert with knives. And now all of a sudden he's really hurting. He's been shot. He's been stabbed. He's down and out. And that is how we're able to accept that this Christopher Lambert, lead singer of the Gin Blossoms, is able to keep up with him.
Yes.
Right.
And we get a great death. Falls off, gets impaled on a gargoyle that spits out his blood.
Love the good sound
that's
of blood
it's
that
a
happens
great
during
death.
that too. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What were you saying, Maureen?
Oh, I was just saying it's such a like rewarding death. You know?
Yeah,
Just
and
like,
the gargoyle kind of goes.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And then we get a sweet ending. You know, Eric gets to be with Shelley at the end because he's done his duty.
Yeah.
He's cleaned up the streets.
Little outro by Sarah, just
Little narration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
little
that.
narration.
And apparently the narration was added. A lot of that narration was added after Brandon Lee.
Okay.
Because they cut some scenes, some extra scenes that he had left to film, and we get a great movie. I think that if you have an actor die who has scenes left to shoot, this is about the most respectful way you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
It didn't feel gross. It felt good. It felt like everything Brandon Lee would want to have happened.
Yeah.
Judging by the interviews he gives about this film and how important this film is to him.
Right.
Right.
I think he would have been thrilled with the reception and how it turned out. And I think, unfortunately and fortunately, it would have catapulted him to pretty big budget Hollywood guy.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Why do you guys think? Because obviously they made sequels. I think we're all like direct to video.
Direct to video.
Yes.
But why do you think the hook never set in people's like mind share? Did make a pretty good profit based on their budget.
I just don't think you can capture a 94 moment like that with stuff that it's ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I mean, you think you had Batman 5 years before that, only 5 years before that, that was ahead of its time. And then you have The Crow, which it's like a turning point. It was a turning point for comic book movies. Besides Batman and Superman, this is like an R-rated comic book movie.
Yeah,
this is
right.
Spawn
Absolutely.
before Spawn happened.
Good point.
This is all that stuff. And you just can't find that now without somebody trying to just sink their teeth into it too much.
Right.
And not just letting the audience have fun with it. You know, kind of like what I was thinking was what we talked about, how Brandon Lee's just thrown into this when he wakes up a year later, and we just know he knows that he's on this mission, he's painting his face now, and he's immediately going to kill Tintin. Now, I think if we have this movie, we get this whole music montage, probably of like a narration of here are the rules for this world that we live in now, and we see this montage of this anti-hero going, trying to learn of what his body is now. And it's kind of just spoon-feeding the audience this stuff to where here, it's just like, nope, Brandon Lee and his girlfriend get raped. She gets raped and dies. He gets killed. Now he comes back a year later, and this all happens in 15 minutes, and it's just like, now I think that would be kind of more spoon-fed and kind of more boring than it is with
yeah.
The Crow.
Absolutely. And it certainly wouldn't have The Cure in the soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what a
Because when he's
banging
doing his
soundtrack.
makeup, I think
Pantera?
that's The Cure
Yeah.
playing, right?
Yeah.
This, I think that's another thing. Like the time period Marcus referenced, like it's grunge. It's
I love this. The soundtrack is just wonderful.
Stone Temple Pilots in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
so. If you haven't seen this movie in a long time, I encourage you to go rewatch it. I think it holds up, and if not, it should be discussed. I think personally, it should be discussed in Batman '89. I think it should be discussed in The Matrix. I think it should be discussed along those terms.
Yeah.
It was a big blockbuster. It made over $60 million in profit of a underground comic book movie. Like, it's unheard of, and it hasn't really another movie like it. Probably, I don't know if it could be made today. I think there would have to be more of a harder edge taken towards a more moral outcome.
Yeah.
Than just he kills everybody and he gets to go to heaven.
Right.
I think there would have to be some
Right.
type of maybe more of a stance taken on vengeance and what it means to society. But
Right.
maybe not. Because
Right.
I think the movie we end up with is just a really complete movie.
Right.
Any last thoughts on The Crow before we wrap up here?
Well, one thing that I think it's funny to think about too, just thinking about if this movie could get made today or would be made today, or if and when about a reboot, whatever. We were watching the special features on the DVD, which by the way is so fun, and I miss that. That's one thing about streaming I don't like is
Yes.
that you don't like just say like,
Give
hey,
me my
fuck it, let's
second
watch
disc.
the special features. But I don't remember who it was specifically who was talking. I don't know if it was the producer or who it was, but it was someone involved with the making of the movie, and they were saying, like, completely unironically, being like, yeah, I mean, this is a movie about a comic book. I mean, there's really nothing like it out there.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny now. You're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
fucking thing is a comic
Right.
book now.
That's so funny.
I think
So
one
it's
of the
like-
I think one of the things he actually says is like, we haven't even scratched the surface of what comic book offers us to film.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
it's
like-
so funny. You're like, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Wait till 2013 hits.
Yeah. Like it's literally about to be there. So
Right.
just wait a minute. Yeah, I just think it's so funny how things have changed, and I do think that something like The Crow could be made because there is such a big audience for these. Because I know like the huge audience for comic book movies. Maybe not everyone would also be into this, but because there's just more comic book fans out there now because of Avengers and whatever, that there are people that do want more kind of indie underground darker things than
Right.
the Avengers universe can offer or the MCU can offer. I don't know. I think that something like this could be made, and
Sure.
I don't know, but I really enjoyed the movie, and if you are on the fence, do it.
If it's my opinion, I would just want this to live in the 90s. Like, this is something that was special that happened. It's
Totally.
special and sad in the
Yeah.
same vein, but it's just something special that caught lightning in a bottle, and it was a perfect match of actors, directors,
Soundtrack,
Soundtrack, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just something that can't be recreated.
Yeah,
and
no,
if you
I
weren't,
hear that.
if you
Right.
didn't see it in theaters or you didn't live through the 90s and watch it, I mean, yeah, watch it now and hopefully you love it too. But it's just like I wouldn't want to remake.
It would be too clean, I feel like.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's The Crow. We were joined today by Creep Street, and those Creep Street people are, introduce yourselves one more time.
I'm Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you can find them, where should they contact you if they want to talk to you?
Of course, Creep Street Podcast at gmail.com or DM us. We're on Facebook, Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, and Twitter at Creep Street Pod.
And what's your next episode? What should we be looking for from you guys?
Ooh, well, we are cooking up, the release of The Conjuring Part 3 is almost upon
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
The same day it releases, we are going to be releasing our episode on the Devil Made Me Do It
Oh,
case,
nice.
which is what the film is based upon.
Because you guys have some podcast already episodes that deal with the actual Conjuring source case.
Yes. Yes, we did an episode on that first Conjuring. Yeah.
And you have Annabelle too,
And we did an
everything.
Annabelle,
episode,
yep.
too.
Yeah.
And yeah, we will be doing an episode on the second Conjuring movie, the Enfield Poltergeist, at some point that we
Yeah.
don't know exactly when, but we will cover that as well.
It's creepy. It's great. It's a lot of fun to listen to. It's a mix of humor and more of the deeper conversations of
German existentialism.
German existentialism,
Yeah.
ethereal planes,
Yeah.
and what's beyond us here. And we, of course, were Adam Archer.
And Marcus Hall.
And this was Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate. And you know what? We're going to see you next week, or you'll listen to us next week. Check out Creep Street, and we'll see you soon, BBK. Talk to you later.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.